Romanticism thoroughly saturated the discourse of modern thinkers. Can you totalize? Can you make things whole? Can you create harmony? If you can't, disappointment. Disappointment is always at the center. Failure is always at the center. But where does romanticism come from? Why begin with romanticism? See, I don't begin with romanticism. Oh, you remember what Beethoven said on his deathbed, you know? He said, I've learned to look at the world in all of its darkness and evil and still love it. And that's not romantic Beethoven. This is the Beethoven of the string quartets, 131, the greatest string quartet ever written, not just in classical music, but of course it's European forms. Beethoven is the grand master. But string quartet, you go back to those movements, there's no romantic wholeness to be shattered as in the early Beethoven. He's given up on that. This is where Chekhov begins. This is where the blues starts. This is where jazz starts. You think Charlie Parker's upset because he can't sustain a harmony? He doesn't care about the harmony. He's trying to completely ride on the dissonance, ride on the blue notes. Of course, he's got harmony in terms of his interventions here and there. But why start with this obsession with wholeness? And if you can't have it, then you're disappointed and want to have a drink and melancholia and blah, 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 blah. No, you see, the blues, my kind of blues, begins with catastrophe, begins with the angel of history in Benjamin's thesis. You see, it begins with the pile of wreckage on one pile on another. That's the starting point. The blues is personal catastrophe lyrically expressed.
The blues is catastrophe lyrically expressed. This idea that we have a innate jazz to our language, to our behaviors, to our individual being is important when we're talking about the symphony of life, when we're talking about the symphony of people, when we're talking about the orchestration and harmony amongst us all. Now, I start metaphorically because I'm going to become incredibly literal about most of what we're talking about today, which is why we're starting here. This isn't the premise. This is a foreword about a concept in the modern times. My friends, if you're not familiar with the lingo, there are subcultures of belief, practice, ideology, and behavior here in the world of streaming solely that would not be acceptable in the population, so to speak. They're called Redpill and Debate Bro. Tom Bombadil. Hello to you, and Lita Caproni. Welcome, welcome all.
And black people in America and in the modern world, given these vicious legacies of white supremacy, it is how do you generate an elegance of earned self-togetherness?
Earned self-togetherness, as opposed to cliques or tribes. And where does this come from? Rollo Tomasi? Andy Taint? Phyllis Schlafly? I'm going to posit today a hypothesis because of what I've found. This is why I'm late. Partially. My friends, I think I found the mother of the red pill. Determinism. Individualism. Gone awry like Frankenstein's monster. And as well you know what that means. Time to look up.
So that you have a stick-to-itness in the face of the catastrophic and the calamitous and the horrendous and the scandalous and the monstrous. See, part of the problem, though, is that, when you have a romantic project, you're so obsessed with time as loss and time as a taker. Whereas as a Jacobian Christian, I want to stress as well time as a gift, time as a giver. So that, yes, it's failure, but, how good is the failure? You've done some wonderful things. Now, Becca could say, try again, fail better. But why call it failure? I mean, why not say you have a sense of gratitude that you're able to do as much as you did? You're able to love as much and think as much and play as much. Why think you needed the whole thing? You see what I mean? This is even disturbing about America. And of course, America is a romantic project. It's Paradiso, City on the Hill, and all this other mess and lies and so on. I said, no, America's a very fragile democratic experiment predicated on the dispossession of the lands of indigenous peoples and the enslavement of African peoples and the subjugation of women, the marginalization of gays and lesbians, that it has great potential. But this notion that somehow, we had it all or ever will have it all, it's got to go. You got to push it to the side.
And I appreciate the preface from the one and only Cornel West. Let's get into the show. Hello and welcome, I'm AronMSound, and this is the show known as Lookup, where I interject myself into a conversation that, well, frankly, nobody asked me to be involved in, and hopefully I end up taking that conversation somewhere it really wasn't intended to go. And oftentimes, what I will do is take a point of view, or look at things in a way that most people are not in the current day. And I like to make examples, or I like to use examples, to show what we're missing, what the behaviors are that have changed, and how we might reclaim bits and pieces from our recent past. Or just to see something individually we could share or maybe do better on. It's up to you. I don't impress anything upon anyone, although I'll always share my opinion, and I will always be cutting. My friends, today, as an individualist myself, I have come to find something quite astonishing in comparison. And that comparison, shockingly enough, is not something I intended to find. I had no intention of doing this today. I changed the title late. I found this late last night. It kept me up most of the night. It gave me ideas for other things that I'm going to do. It made me approach a subject in a different way, and it made me reach out to someone I should have quite a while ago. And shout out to them for taking my call and being willing to listen to all of that. Because as you well know, I am a cacophony of ideas often. But that's what I think the discourse should be about if it's healthy. Because synthesis is made from thesis, antithesis, to synthesis. And that synthesis, that's how we get to higher levels of purpose and idea and a better discourse between you and I. So today, I kind of came to a weird point of understanding that maybe this red pill world, which is made up of the MGTOW, men going their own way, or self-improvement to the point of misogyny and fragmentation or disenfranchisement, and comparative of men, like some can get it and some are never gonna get it, and then the debate bro world where logic and reasoning is only about winning. So take the side that wins, and if your side wins, then let's cheer on and light something else on fire. These are the degradations of our discourse and that synthesis that I just talked about. In my opinion, agree or disagree, hopefully you'll stick around and find out why I feel this way. But to start with, let me just explain and give a little background for those that don't know or are just watching this and have no clue the fuck I'm talking about, because it's such a subcultural event that most of society in the United States specifically, and I would gather around the world, has no clue what's going on with this first world event of a very privileged few who are able to be online, stare at their own camera, stare at a screen, have a device in their hand, and who may have grown up being fed a whole bunch of echo chambers straight to them with sales pitches of negativity and ideas of individualism that, when gone awry, without balance, without other messaging, without other groups of people to influence positively and negatively, to create one's own identity in a healthy balance and a social discourse alongside the very important emotional integrity and intellect. Well, if you don't have that, who knows what could happen? You could fall off the rails, or you could end up in groups of people sitting in rooms on the internet screaming at each other about the definition of a word that has a definition. In any case, I digress. Before we start the show today, I'm going to go into these defining ideas so you understand them. We've already started with creativity and romanticism to understand how that can go awry, and how it is important yet in our society to recognize all of the components that go into that romanticism gone awry, which is why I found this piece with Cornell talking poetically, because I think the poetics of life and the jazz that he talks about is fucking missing from all the discourse by the clinical aspect of the approach for a W! W! Fuck that. Sometimes there's just compromise and cooperation, which is what discourse in synthesis is supposed to be. Disagree with me all you like. The call-in's in the chat. It's open. Happy to take your call. Anyways, this is what the red pill is, according to the best version of the explanation, and it's pretty fair, although he does have bias. I'm not gonna lie. There's a bias in here, but it is decent enough to where I'm like, I can buy that. My audience can buy that. You know, whoever's going to dislike this is going to argue with it anyways. Oh, I should probably turn that on. Oh no, of course it drops out. All right, backups to backups. You know I got the backup to the backup. Meanwhile, let me shrink on down. While we go into Act 1. Hey, good to see you. I said I was going to shoot down. No,
I've already shed some light on philosophical phenomena erupted from popular culture, and I gladly take a step further by talking about the profound meaning of these different colored pills people extensively talk about on the internet. Although it isn't uncommon to use pills as symbols for certain states of awareness. The best known example is a scene from the movie The Matrix. In this scene, the protagonist Neo is offered a red pill and a blue pill. By swallowing the blue pill, one remains in blissful ignorance, but by swallowing the red pill, one is exposed to the brutal truth of life. Throughout the years, people began to attribute more meaning to the red and blue pill, and even expanded the philosophy with several other colored pills, like the black pill and the purple pill. In this 3-part series, I will talk about these pills, starting with the blue pill and red pill, served with a bit of Schopenhauer.
So one of the things that I'd also like to point out that he may not go into, or we may not get to, is the fact that the red pill, blue pill is also just an adversarial positioning. Everybody's against you. Everything is against you. When that's not true. There are aspects of life that are against you, but when you start pitting everybody and everything against you as if it's not real, from the get-go, as your premise, you have already decided to deny reality because of the fear of engaging, in my opinion, with the reality as presented, so you want it to be something else, which can be misconstrued or construed as determinism.
A blue-pilled person lives in an illusion.
He doesn't,
This
Lita,
illusion
actually know.
shields people
What's
from
up,
seeing
new
the
era?
world
Welcome,
for
welcome,
what it
welcome.
really is.
We're just
Those in power could
using
consciously provide blue
a
pills
descriptive
to
explanation of
dumb
the red
down
pill
herd.
before I move
But
on to the rest to
grassroots
describe how
level,
Ayn Rand
people
is involved,
also
so you understand the language.
consciously provide blue pills sideways and even bottom up when the
there's my
masses take illusion as reality. Simply put, one becomes blue-pilled through nurture. When a majority of people is attached to a certain belief system, it's incredibly difficult to change their minds. The Matrix movie shows us that most people that are plugged into the Matrix aren't ready for the truth. Moreover, when their reality is challenged, they will resist. Mostly after great tragedy, one begins to awaken and starts to question all previously accepted realities about this world and realizes that he or she had.
And by the way, the real key of the scenario here that is troubling is not just the adversarial act or the disassociation with reality, but rather the act of saying that the reality that is impressed upon you is somehow working against you, instead of recognizing that it is really about our observation and interaction with that reality. Lita Caproni, I be tied, what's happening? Oh, sorry, everybody in chat, by the way, thank you for showing up. I know I was 2 hours late, 2.5 hours later than my normal time slot today. It has to do with the fact that this is a pretty deep subject. Hopefully you have the time to hang out with me, but I think I've nailed, okay, in my opinion, I've nailed down a whole link of what's going on. And I may, you know, you can tell me, have found a little, you know, a crumb, something to get a hold of where the roots of these things are. And in any case, I know that most of you know what the red pill is. I was thinking very hard about this, by the way, folks, as to whether or not I should actually share this with you, you know, because I know that most of the people, I don't want to be pretentious about this, but I think that historically, or if somebody reviews this later on, or if there's somebody that happens to be watching who doesn't know what the red pill is, maybe somebody should explain it to them. Because, and this is, honestly, out of all the videos, this is the best one I found. So, when I say that, I mean, it's the best about a shitty ass topic that I found. That's what I meant. That's actually what I meant. Sorry. Was that me? All right. Oh, where am I? Hold on a second. I gotta turn things on. I gotta actually like engage and engage. Sorry, folks. That's why it's live. That's why it's live. All right. So that's there. I should probably turn up the audio. iPhone audio, am I still rocking there? Input left. Yeah, I might have to go to the input left. Let's see if it's, I have to go back. No, it's there. Oh, yeah. Don't have these many buttons, folks. Don't have this many buttons.
Moreover, when their reality is challenged, they will resist. Mostly after great tragedy, one begins to awaken and
resisting reality as well as the buttons and levers
about this world, and realizes that he or she has been living in a lie. This realization often brings about an emotional reaction, which is called the red pill rage. Some stay in that rage forever, while others come to terms with reality.
Of course, there's a rage because you feel like you've been, well, tricked by your friends and family and the world by telling you something that doesn't turn out to be true, when this is just the nature of life. And it is the troubling facet of the message that's being sold to these kids, to these folks, to these minds, as if there's some easy solution to everything in their life that doesn't come at a cost, or that doesn't take time and effort. And the red pill itself suggests that if you just take this one, if you take the one with the one eye, everything will be clearer than before. But if you want to stick with the tiny rubber ducky and stay in that bland old whatever, you're fine. No, you're fine. It's okay. Come on. Otherism, xenophobia from the get-go. Other people who are not seeing it as well as you. And then first thing that comes is rage because you've been betrayed.
Red pill knowledge
Makes sense, right?
contains tons of information about different subjects. People spread this knowledge and their own experiences and observations to teach others what they have learned. Other people's knowledge can be used as a compass, a torch that illuminates the path to our own experienced truth. We see the world through new eyes, eyes that we have never used before. And it's only when we become aware and now
somebody
see
just
and
gave you a
experience
drug and now you're like,
ourselves these things that others told us, that the red pill truly
because
kicks
that's what
in.
it is.
Although I think that red pill
Or a
knowledge
contagion,
can be
a
valuable,
social contagion maybe.
there is a caution before tumbling down the rabbit hole. The red pill may pull off our blue pill glasses, but it doesn't necessarily lead to truth. German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer distinguished a natural way of learning, which is done solely through our own experiences, and an artificial way, which is, and I quote, to hear what other people say, to learn and to read, and so to get your head crammed full of general ideas, before you have any sort of extended acquaintance with the world as it is, and as you may see it for yourself, end quote. Schopenhauer believed that we hardly apply these ideas in a right manner. By gaining ideas first and personal experiences last, we basically put the cart before the horse. I quote, instead of developing the child's own faculties of discernment and teaching it to judge and think for itself, the teacher uses all his energies to stuff its head full of the ready-made thoughts of other people, the mistaken views of life, which spring from a false application of general ideas, have afterwards to be corrected by long years of experience, and it is seldom that they are wholly corrected.
Why would I be sharing this as explanation and also premise? Well, as you can tell, indoctrination of ideology is easy to impart, but takes immense amounts of deprogramming to actually dismantle. And sometimes may never, because these systems become ingrained in our practice and in our, well, personalities. And I think that we all know some people who claim to have personalities based around pizza. Am I overusing this yet? Okay. Yeah. Oh, around pizza. So, we should probably think about the ramifications of these alternate perception concepts. Meaning, the things we sell to people that then become social contagion, that tell people that the world is not as they see it, it's as they force it to be. And Lita, no, I didn't know anything about the black pill being forced, by the way. Does he explain that the black pill was created by force? No, I can only imagine. I can only imagine any of the sections. But that's why, well, the red pill, and I'll let this finish, by the way, because there's some important information here at the end. The red pill is essentially an out for what I would argue is lazy mind an easy out to say, you don't have to deal with the world as it is. You can manufacture it and find a clique that'll be just as distorted as you and will pat you on the back and validate your bizarro world version idea. Now this, I postulate, is a complete bastardization, misuse, and misappropriation of Ayn Rand's fairly noble, even if you think it's misguided, fairly noble attempt to create a new idea for a new future steeped in an individualism that had yet to exist, followed by an actual new concept of ideology called determinism. I think determinism has been flipped over on its head to work for fascism. To work for fascism as the sheep's clothing for the vicious lizard monster underneath. I'm sorry. I had a lot of thoughts in my head as I was saying that, so I'll say it one more time. Determinism is the sheep's clothing hiding the lizard monster. Anyways.
End quote. If, instead of removing the veil of ignorance through personal experience, we attach ourselves to belief systems that other people throw at us, we basically go from the frying pan into the freezer. Moreover, we run the risk to feel threatened when these newly adopted ideas are challenged. Schopenhauer also described this, and I quote, "He will begin by rejecting the evidence it offers as partial and one-sided. Nay, he will shut his eyes to it altogether and deny that it stands in any contradiction at all with his preconceived notions, in order that he may thus preserve them uninjured."
Okay, so there's a term for this. It's called cognitive dissonance. When you deny the reality presented and act as though it is an affront to you. In other words, you get angry because somebody presents something that's outside of your schism of understand or your realm of understanding, and you reject it wholeheartedly, like an ass, and you're like, I can't stand you liking chocolate! Clip me. Anyhow. Yeah. Full rejection mentally of an idea that is plain to be found in reality, that is basically the idea or the behavior that we're looking at. Cognitive dissonance is the name, if you're not familiar with it.
Ironically, this man finds himself, again, in the same position that he tried to free himself from, which is the position of ignorance. When it comes to red pill knowledge, I would always separate beliefs from empirical knowledge and treat this knowledge as it is, a collection of data retrieved in a certain moment from a certain source. I think it's fine to take notion of this data as long as we stay receptive for life experiences, especially those experiences that challenge our beliefs retrieved by the artificial way of learning. What I personally hold in much higher esteem is something called red pill awareness. This is the act of keeping our eyes open, paying good attention to the world and thinking for ourselves, instead of just having adopted a fixed set of beliefs that put our awareness and curiosity back to sleep. If we continuously adopt large amounts of predominantly negative ideas about the world, from TV, newspapers, internet forums, social media, YouTube videos and other external sources, we might become so miserable that we decide to shut the door forever. Instead of experiencing life, we wallow away in the abyss we have built for ourselves and deny everything that contradicts our convictions.
In other words, fighting against the facts, feeling like the facts are fighting against you.
I will talk some more about pills in the second episode of this 3-part series. This episode appears in the near future, and I will dedicate it to the black pill and the clown world. Thank you for watching.
Oh, so it's a whole other video. I missed that one, Lita. It's Ayn Rands. Hopefully you won't find anything really objective. I didn't know. Excellent explanation, but I'm a little concerned now. Is that a Jewish last name you have there? I'm sorry, that's terrible. That is so bigoted. Just assuming. That's because I've experienced that shit directly. Directly. Like, in all sorts of fashions, but you guys know those stories. Not all of them, but you guys know most of them. Yeah. Which brings me to, now that I've explained this to you, so now you understand what the red pill is. The opposite of normal, essentially. Fed to people as a social contagion via a metaphor stolen from a Philip K. Dick concept that actually means to free yourself from the mental prison, which I talk about on every single show. Now, I have given it a name because it has one. And it's important for you to know this name. It's called obelisk. It is one of the oldest structures, physically so, known to man, that represents the structure of power. Now, at the top, you've got this thing called a ben-ben. It's disassociated from the rest of the subject of the build, and it basically sits atop a funnel. And that funnel is us, as long as we take part in the mental prison. Now, my whole thing is that each one of us is in that mental prison by our own choice. And I think that it used to be that you could say, here, take the red pill, you'll get out that mental prison. But I think that somebody's co-opted the whole idea so that no longer is handing out some help out of that prison. Some actual help. No, you're just helping somebody over to the other side of the prison bar where they're flinging their Michael's bedazzled poopy at somebody else in that same prison, when it's just like a battery feeding money, power, and focus up to the top rungs that aren't even connected. So all we got to do, step outside. Here, let me lend you this sledgehammer of mirth I got right here. It's all imaginary anyways. The prison cell door, that shit's open, because it doesn't exist. It's what you make of it. You're not impressed upon by anything that you don't want to be. That's the message that I spread, one at a time. And it's about one at a time, really, frankly, to me. Ayn Rand is a very special person. By the way, do you know what debate bro culture is? Oh, did you not know where we're at? I am going to get a visual for this. I was thinking about this last night. I needed to build a visual for this. It's going to take me a second. We're at the Azure Spheres. That's right. We are at full Azure Sphere. Do you know what a debate bro is? You familiar with this? I got a little clip. At least it'll let you into what the lead debate bro thinks debate bros are. And by lead debate bro, I'm sure you're familiar with our friend.
Debate bro culture. I think debating constantly or being like a debater is like a pretty cancerous like trait. Like if you're just somebody that's trying to make like everything into an argument, or you're trying to like go hard on everything or get dunks constantly, I think it's a pretty bad. I think it's a bad personality trait, and I think it's really obnoxious.
Oh, you do?
Content. I have that impression because that's generally what people know me for. But I mean,
wait,
I have
so you have
simple discussions. With
have an impression that other people think you're an ass, and you think that's correct? Is what you just said?
Yeah, like yeah, you can have a reasonable discussion with him. Yeah, you just have to not be a lunatic. Like there are plenty.
By the way, I listened to that 4 times just to make sure I was getting that correct.
The problem is that like
what?
It seems like people just can't disagree.
Yeah. Yeah. What else?
People can't disagree with anything. They can't have any disagreements. You're like, you have to be part of a group, and then that group has like a list of ideas that you have to subscribe to, and if you disagree with any single thing, you can't just be like a different person with a different idea. You become an entirely different entity. It's like diarrhea in a pool. Like
no, it's not like diarrhea in a pool. It's called tribalism and fascist mindset. It's amazing how these things already have names to people who know what they're talking about, because I've done the reading and the research into the subject to figure out what it is these things are. I even have a theory now, working so, on why people may be experiencing these things more often. But that's a whole other episode. I just find it hilarious that King Debate Smurf over here, he doesn't have the Smurf hat on yet. This is some time ago. But when I found this, I'm just like, oh my God. He doesn't even like debate bros. He doesn't even know it. He doesn't even know what the counter is to why. He doesn't even know what to say to, you know, people who don't like the argument, people who don't like the argument. Here, let's run that back just so we get it really right. Okay, so because I want to get it really right, because, you know, these people are all about context.
It's like diarrhea in a pool. Like, people will look at multiple pools.
No, it's not like diarrhea in a fucking pool.
Oh, like
it's like fucking fascism.
It's like diarrhea in a pool.
Oh, okay,
like,
okay. We've heard the diarrhea in a pool.
People can't disagree with anything. They can't have any disagreements. You're like, you have to
because
be part of a group,
they have
and then that
cognitive
group has like a list of
dissonance,
ideas that you have to
possibly.
subscribe to, and if you
and what he's actually talking about
any-
is his server and the people in his server, apparently, and it's called cliquism and tribalism. It has names. I'm amazed that he's just kind of blanking out. Yeah, that's cognitive dissonance. Just somehow outside of his realm of understanding. Oh, amazing.
Single thing. You
Oh,
can't have a
convenient.
different
Oh!
idea. You become an entirely different entity. It's like diarrhea in a pool. Like, people will look at multiple pools, and instead of thinking that, like, oh, like, this pool can have some chairs in it, or this pool can have some floaties on top of it, or this pool can have, like, lights in it, instead it's like, oh, you have a different idea. Well, your pool has diarrhea in it. I can't touch it at all. It's actually the entire thing. Like, that's how they view people. That, like...
No, that's how... That's worse than my Michael's bedazzled poopy throwing metaphor. Anyhow, I think that explains debate, bro. Pretty well, actually. When I said that, I was like, that's pretty contradictive, hyperbolic, rhetorical, non-informed, meandering, deflective. That's debate, bro, all right? Yay! Yeah! Sorry, give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Yay! Sorry. Like, wrapped up in a little, like, it's not even a minute long. He just, like, oh, the definition. Nonsense. Why do I share this stuff? Because this is all stemming from somewhere. This all comes from some ideology, right? Where does this fucking come from? Is it Marxism? Is it fascism? And what form of fascism? And which route is it taking? And wait, hold on, hey! Hold on. There's an answer for that. This is a corruption of a very intensive ideology. And I bring you to something that I am a little bothered to bring you, because I'm frankly somebody who has often referred to a careful balance as important. So I do include determinism, the Ayn Rand variety, in this variation of belief and balance and centrism and amalgamism. Somebody asked me what I was. I had to really think about it. It took me a couple days. Now, amalgamist, right? I'd like to introduce you, my friends, to someone you may have never heard from directly. And if you have, good on you. But this, I'm going to give you a little introspective on who she is, in her own words, of course, at a time where she was very vibrant and alive and very much focused on the future before it had happened. And the writer of The Fountainhead, and the creator of determinism, may very well be the mother of the Redpill, and the debate bro culture via determinism and individualistic identity as ideology. But my theory is it's been bastardized to the point where it's no longer recognizable as itself.
Is that your impression?
Mike Wallace, Ayn Rand, 225 dash 1.
I've practiced it all my life.
By the way, the tech on this moment, there was no faders back then, so that was done with like 3 dudes, like 1 dude doing the zoom and 2 dudes doing the...
This is Mike Wallace with another television portrait from our gallery of colorful people. Throughout the United States, small pockets of intellectuals have become involved in a new and unusual philosophy which would seem to strike at the very roots of our society. The fountainhead of this philosophy is a novelist, Ayn Rand, whose 2 major works, The Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged, have been bestsellers. We'll try to find out more about
Atlas
her
Shrugged.
revolutionary creed and about Miss Rand herself in just a moment. And now to our story. Down through history, various political and philosophical movements have sprung up, but most of them have died.
Snazzy cat, that
Some,
Mike
however,
Wallace.
like democracy or communism, take hold and affect the entire world. Here in the United States, perhaps the most challenging and unusual new philosophy has been forged by a novelist, Ayn Rand. Miss Rand's point of view is still comparatively unknown in America, but if it ever did take hold, it would revolutionize our lives. And Ayn, to begin with,
I think we can
capsulize. I know this is difficult.
assert that that became truth, right?
Your philosophy. What is Randism?
First of all, I do not call it Randism, and I don't like that name. I call it objectivism.
All right.
Meaning a philosophy based on objective reality. Now let me...
And I apologize, I keep saying determinism.
First,
that is the outcome of the
philosophy is based
objectivism.
on the concept that reality...
But her version was
an
objectivism,
objective
so I apologize that I was saying
that man's
missaying that.
mind, reason,
Imbibing
is
too
his
much
means
information
of
recently.
perceiving it. And that man
Don't get old,
needs
kids. Don't get old.
rational morality.
No, get old, kids.
I
Get
am
old.
primarily
Get
the
old. Get
creator
really
of
old.
a new code of morality, which has so far been believed impossible, namely, a morality not based on faith.
On
or
faith.
Not on faith, not on arbitrary whim, not on emotion, not on arbitrary edict, mystical or social, but on reason and morality.
Are you hearing any language already that sounds similar to some of these talking points we keep hearing? If not, hold on. They're coming.
Reality which can be proved by means of logic, which can be demonstrated to be true and necessary.
All right. All right.
Now, may I define what my morality is?
All right.
Because this is merely an introduction. My morality is based on man's life as a standard of value. And since man's mind is his basic means of survival, I hold that if man wants to live on earth and to live as a human being, he has to hold reason as an absolute, by which I mean that he has to hold reason as his only guide to action, and that he must live by the independent judgment of his own mind, that his highest moral purpose is the achievement of his own happiness, and that he must not force other people, nor accept their right to force him, that each man must live as an end in himself and follow his own rational.
So this sounds pretty good, and I mean, that sounds pretty good. We should all live as ourselves, have our own ideas and individuality, and embrace that while respecting others, but having our own sense of the world to synthesize. Oh, that sounds pretty good. How could that go wrong? Right? Oh, wait. Oh, hold on a second. There seems to be something fairly familiar about some of this. Nah, not yet. Not. Yeah. Maybe?
Of interest.
May I interrupt now?
You may.
Because you put this philosophy to work in your novel Atlas Shrugged.
That's right.
You demonstrate it in human terms in your novel Atlas Shrugged. And let me start by quoting from a review of this novel Atlas Shrugged that appeared in Newsweek. It said that you are out to destroy almost every edifice in the contemporary American way of life, our Judeo-Christian religion, our modified government-regulated capitalism, our rule by the majority will. Other reviews have said that you scorn churches and the concept of God. Are these accurate criticisms?
Yes. I agree with the facts, but not the estimates of this criticism. Namely, if I am challenging the base of all these institutions, I'm challenging the moral code of altruism, the precept that man's moral duty is to live for others, that man must sacrifice himself to others, which is the present-day morality.
What do you mean by sacrifice himself for others? We're getting to the point.
One moment. Since I'm challenging the base, I necessarily would challenge the institutions you named, which are a result of that morality.
All right.
And now what is self-sacrifice?
Yes, what is self-sacrifice? You say that you do not like the altruism by which we live. You like a certain kind of Ayn Randist selfishness.
I will say that I don't like is too weak a word. I consider it evil. And self-sacrifice is the precept that man needs to serve others.
Is it starting to sound familiar now? The idea that one would serve others just for the sake of doing so, and the rejection thereof, altogether, for the sake of yourself? Now, I understand why she's taking that perception. She comes from communist Russia. She escaped. So she would reject all of the ideology of control. She's more leaning towards anarchistic, meaning no one individual control, but self-rule. She's talking about respect, but she's also talking about foregoing the norms of historical culture in order, and this isn't such a bad thing in all respects, because somebody's got to say it, that we should at least attempt to reject and throw away things if they don't serve us. That's just what she's saying. But it's an extreme point of view to say that we should just simply throw away the service and the altruism in favor of solely serving the self. And Tom points out very astutely here, I'll read, sorry, I should just read this out directly out of the chat. Yeah. Yes, even the most narcissist individual, if intelligent, would come to the conclusion that cooperation is self-serving anyway. I'm sorry. Let me read that. Yes, even the most narcissist individual, if intelligent, would come to the conclusion that cooperation is self-serving anyways. Yes, that we all benefit. So I had to make sure I read that right. Yeah, narcissism and altruism are intertwined. True, there is a service to the self and enjoyment, a hedonism, if anything, in some respects, to seeing others do well. People forget that. Because they may be more focused on trying to take care of the self, which is understandable. Well, once again, as I always try to urge, a balance in this order is fairly important. In any case, I don't want to digress too far because I have a lot to share with you. The point being is, I think we're starting to get to the language. Okay, I know. We're starting to get to the language that I found that I was shocked at, because I'm starting to hear Myron Gaines, Just Pearly Things, the Lookup Network. Some of these, I mean, I'm starting to hear all this Red Pill world MGTOW stuff. And not the extremity of it, not the top layer visceral messaging, I'm hearing its root. I'm hearing its core. I was calling it determinism because it essentially is. It becomes objectivism becomes determinism at some point. It turns into that because you end up having to choose a path and decide the world, which is red pill. Except that path has already been set for you. So I would argue that's obelisk. It's just a trick. And it's a bastardization of her individualistic, fairly hedonistic intention, I believe.
In order to justify his existence, that his moral duty is to serve others. That is what most people believe today.
Well, yes, we're taught to feel concerned for our fellow man, to feel responsible for his welfare, to feel that we are, as religious people might put it, children under God and responsible one for the other. Now, why do you rebel? What's wrong with this philosophy?
But that is what, in fact, makes man a sacrificial animal. That man must work for others, concern himself with others, or be responsible.
Wonderful start, Tom. If you're gonna quote Stargate, fucking do it right, and you just did. And hold on a second. Do I have this actually even open? Oh, I do. Good. Okay, because yeah, sure. Okay. That earned some horns for that motherfucker. Come on. And by motherfucker, I mean that lovingly. So. Not negatively. That's 100%. It's like being called the C word in Australia. I don't know why. I apologize if you take. I wish I knew a better French term for that. There's got to be a good like Quebec term for that. And let me read this. Destiny is shaped by the character of those who shape it. Samantha Carter from Stargate SG-1. I forgot to read it out. I was so excited by it. It's hilarious. By the way, we keep getting visited by a few folks that I do expect us to get visited by. Tom knows what I'm talking about. I was prodding. I was like, is there a little fire? Oh no! Matches! Gasoline! Yeah, well, no, I'm so glad you were there for that last night because people were like, no, Aaron, don't. I'm like, you don't know what I'm doing. Which is part of, you know what's going on. People who've been watching for a minute understand the larger perspective of what I'm doing. So, but yes, Tom, it was when I sent in the $33.33 just to fuck with them this last night when I really just went a little far, but it's okay. I didn't go far enough. If I really wanted to do it straight, I would have sent $333. But I'm not gonna do that shit. I'm not paying Tom $333 just to talk some shit. Anyways, but I'll pay him $33 to talk some shit. Anyways, if you didn't know what I'm talking about, I was talking smack to some folks who were very upset that I wouldn't go into their little den of logic where their little bullying works in that one space. They were very upset with me that I wouldn't do that. And thought I was the coward, apparently, I guess. But instead, I responded like I would on the street with, no, you show up in my place, bitch. Don't be a fucking coward. You want to meet me somewhere? Meet me in Speakeasy server. Meet me in the Thorpe server. Meet me in the Wick server. If you're really in your feefees from being outside of your fucking little whack-ass bubble, meet me in the Prime K's space. Meet me in my server. I'll get a neutral party. That's what I have. I have, of course, a backup to a backup in all cases. So whatever you figure out, you can do. I'm sorry, did I digress? That's basically what I said last night. Was that close enough? And then I was like, oh, and let me just send some money in and shout this out, add some extra, and just be fire, fire. Anyways, where am I?
For them. That is the role of a sacrificial object. I say that
All
man is entitled to his own happiness and that he must achieve it himself, but that he cannot demand that others give up their lives to make him happy. And nor should he
I agree with her.
to sacrifice himself for the happiness of others. I hold that man...
I don't agree with her. Disavow.
And cannot man have self-esteem if he loves his fellow man? What's wrong?
Which,
with
by the
love?
way, point there. You don't have to agree with every single thing a person says. Do you know that? You can take some things from what they say and learn a bunch and reject others. It's called critical thinking. It really is. You want me to look it up for you? I could. Do you want me to? No? Okay, you do that later. I was literally speaking to two people. The rest of my chat knows that I wasn't speaking to them because they know what the fuck that is. But I have a feeling there's a couple people, two specific people that don't know. I'm on fire today. I got some input, and now I'm on fire. I said straight out, individualistically so. I think fairly objectively. Sorry, I can't even keep a straight face on that. I think fairly objective. You notice how I'm not like breaking down the definitions of the words they're using? Yeah, because if you don't fucking understand the definitions, catch up with the dictionary, carry it with you. There's already a meaning to it. You don't need to reinvestigate the word. I am going to do a definition day, I think, coming up next week about the word feminism. Feminism. The expectation that women are equal. Full stop. No addition, no radfem, no feminazi, no I believe in, I feel like, or fuck. To quote somebody in chat, fuck your perspective. And not about, I'm not referring back to anyone in particular, I'm just using that as a quote. Because that was dark. That was like a dark moment. I was like, holy shit. Fuck your perspective. Damn, it got dark. What happened? What happened? Anyway, yeah. Oh, sorry, Ann. Sorry. She's looking at me like I'm just fucking
Your
falling
fellow
out.
man, Christ, every important moral leader in man's history, has taught us that we should
I need
love
to close
one
up on
another.
that one.
Why, then, is this kind of love, in your mind, immoral?
It is immoral if it is a love placed above oneself. It is more than immoral, it's impossible. Because when you are asked to love everybody indiscriminately, that is to love people without any standard, to love them regardless of the fact of whether they have any value or virtue,
Value
you
or
are asked
virtue?
to love nobody.
But in a sense, in your book, you talk about love as if it were a business deal of some kind. Isn't the essence of love that it is above self-interest?
Wait,
well,
wait,
let me-
hold on. What? Did he just say she was treating love as a business deal? This sounds very familiar. Maybe because transactionalism is essentially what the Red Pill community speaks about most often without saying it. It's mostly about how a man needs to have a certain amount of money, a certain amount of clout, a certain amount of workout days, a certain amount of stoicism, and then the only reason they have this is because that's the only way they'll ever get a woman to be with them. Now, mind you, forget about love, forget about it's transactional. Transactionalism as behavior and ideology in social behaviors, which, what's happening, Bronx LT? Welcome! I'm so glad to see you. So glad to see you. Which brings me back to what she was saying, and let me just scroll this back for a second because I think it's what Mike Wallace, the late Mike Wallace. God damn, on it. What he points out here is
love one another. Why then is this kind of love in your mind
let me knock John down.
It is immoral if it is a love placed above oneself. It is more than immoral, it's impossible. Because when you are asked to love everybody indiscriminately, that is to love people without any standard, to love them regardless of the fact of whether they have any value or virtue, you are asked to love nobody.
But in a sense, in your book, you talk about love as if it were a business deal of some kind. Isn't the essence of love that it is above self-interest?
Well, let me make it.
It's for both. It's above self-interest and for self-interest.
Love above self-interest. It would mean, for instance, that a husband would tell his wife, if he were moral, according to the conventional morality, that I am marrying you just for your own sake. I have no personal interest in it, but I am so unselfish that I am marrying you only for your own good.
Well, should husbands and wives
would any
tally
woman
up?
like that?
Should husbands and wives tally up at the end of the day and say, well, now wait a minute, I love her if she's done enough for me today, or she loves me if I have properly performed my functions?
No, you misunderstood me. That is not how love should be treated. I agree with you that it should be treated like a business deal, but every business has to have its own terms and its own kind of currency. And
oh, really? And excuse me, but I might have a couple clips here. If you don't mind me jumping off to just make a comparative. Over here. Just a comparative. Maybe.
Enough is showing me that sexism is still really alive.
Can I ask wow. You think this podcast is sexist?
I was posted on so many Redpill incel accounts. Yes, it's giving incel a lot.
Oh man. Okay, all the buzzwords are coming out. I don't even know where to start tackling this. Okay, so
thank you, Bronx. I appreciate you.
Women were oppressed in history, but so were men. It's
How?
not
As much as women
see, now
were.
this is interesting, because if I say how were women were oppressed, you're like, well, it's self-evident, Brian. I shouldn't have to educate you. Yet you've just asked me the same question. You've just asked, how were men oppressed? Shouldn't you know?
No, because that wasn't taught in school.
So isn't that interesting? Male oppression was never taught in school, but females' oppression was. Isn't that interesting? So who's really oppressed then?
Oh my God, Brian.
If men's grievances throughout history are overlooked, who's the real one that's oppressed? Perhaps you don't even believe men are oppressed.
Don't, to be honest.
You don't?
Yeah.
To make sure that makes sense. Let's say you go to a fortune teller. That man of your dreams, you find out 5 years from now, he's going to be broke.
So men
no ability to provide security for you.
Alcoholic.
He's going to become an alcoholic.
Because they're not getting equal
now
treatment.
That you're armed with this information.
Apparently.
No.
Fantastic. Women are interested in a man's future. A man is interested in a woman's past.
Gotcha, bitch!
Transactionalism.
Gotcha. Myron, you would not marry a woman that would become a crippling alcoholic. Nobody would. That's absurd. Sometimes he'll redefine entire definitions of words, thinking it makes him look smart. He does this in another debate over the same topic of cheating.
Now, when the guy steps up, goes to a strip club, gets paid, gets sex with a escort, whatever. Now you're mad at him for stepping out. But once again, you leverage that whole period of time against him, and then you wonder why he cheats. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, what if you are giving him everything he asked for and he still cheats? So what's the explanation there?
We told you already, men don't cheat, they just have sex.
Yeah, that's cheating.
All right, so
having sex is cheating. You putting your
It's
heart
not.
into
Hold on,
somebody
Chris.
else is cheating.
No, it's not.
If it's not an open relationship, that's cheating. Myron can't even comprehend a world where a woman would want him for more than just his money.
What do they need to bring to the table if you are going to take a man seriously in a relationship and
Respect.
possibly marry him?
Literally, he needs to bring respect. Like, I can handle up on my own. If I want something, I can go and get it. I can go work work and get whatever I want. I don't have to depend on somebody.
Is
to
where
work.
Ayn
Does he have to
Rand-
earn at least as much money as you, if not more?
He doesn't.
And
How old are you?
Myron Gaines.
Me, I'm 20.
Okay.
And whatever podcast.
Okay.
And since he can't get her to agree with
And
him,
the
he just
Redpill.
dismisses her entirely based off her age, even though that's the age range he tells men to go for.
We know this for statistical
you love
fact.
people, not for what you do for them.
They all
or what
meet
they do
in the middle
for
of the
you.
paradigm.
You love them for the values, the virtues, which they have achieved in their own character. You don't love causelessly. You don't love everybody indiscriminately.
Exactly,
You love
Tom. It's individually.
only
And then-
those who deserve it.
It's
And then
individual
if a man is
to each and every
weak, or a
single
woman is
one.
Weak, then he is beyond love.
He certainly does
Oh,
not
well, thank
deserve
you,
it.
Tom.
He
I didn't know I
certainly
was
is
being
beyond.
spicy.
He can always correct it. Man has free will. If a man wants love, he should correct his weaknesses or his flaws, and he may deserve it. But he cannot expect the unearned, neither in love nor in money.
But you
neither
have-
in
You can't expect the unearned in love or money. Which is, there's a truth to it.
Of human beings, there are very few of us then in this world,
But
by your standards, who
turn
are
to an
worthy of
extreme.
love.
Unfortunately, yes, very few. But it is open to everybody to make themselves worthy of it, and that is all that my morality offers them.
If they will
A
conduct-
way to make themselves worthy of love, although that's not the primary motive.
Let's move ahead. Let's move ahead. How does your philosophy translate itself into the world of politics? Now, one of the principal achievements of this country in the past 20 years particularly, I think most people agree, is the gradual growth of social protective legislation based on the principle that we are our brother's keepers. How do you feel about the political trends of the United States, the Western world?
The way everybody feels, except more consciously. I feel that it is terrible, that you see destruction all around you, and that you are moving toward disaster until and unless all those welfare state conceptions have been reversed and rejected.
Speaking of reversed and rejected, another great example I remembered that I had of Ayn Rand's Frankenstein version of objectivism. This is interesting.
Men, not women, because women cannot computate at the level the men do. That is just a statistical fact. There's a whole
just so you know, at Google, you're going to say it's run by the people, but I Googled are men smarter than women, and literally every single study says there's no difference.
Well, I'll find the study for you, watched Reddit studies saying the most stupid people in the world are men, and the most intelligent people in the world are men, because we fall to the outward deviations of the bell curve, whereas women are more likely to be in the median. So I'm not. This is not sexist because I'm saying the most stupid.
But I think it's wrong. Like based on everything, I just think it's wrong. Like there's like 20 studies that pop up.
Well,
so.
then if you then search up. If you were to look up the highest IQs in the world, the first 10, first 20, look them up. Are they men or women? I haven't done this. Look it up. But let's talk about my personal experience, right? Let's talk about the chess world. The best female chess player in the world simply cannot compete with the men. I don't know where she is, number 50 or something.
It's a logic of determinism.
Well, those parts are intimate, right? That's the whole point of her being his.
Yeah, but
it's
you
a
didn't do
logic of
reverse.
transactionalism.
Well, if a male porn star
Correct.
does it, he doesn't owe the girl a cut.
Correct, because he doesn't belong to her. She still belongs to him.
Correct. So that's the sexist part.
But and you've also said you also said that you could have multiple partners, but a female that was with you couldn't also have multiple partners.
Well, a woman could say that same thing if she decided. She could say, "I can sleep with multiple men, but my men can't sleep with multiple women if she so choose." We're all free individuals, right?
Yeah, but you wouldn't agree if a woman said that.
I don't think I would personally find that revolting. Correct, but there are women who find what I say revolting.
It's an ideology of interaction over empathy, self over the well-being of your others. He says it, Tom.
Individuals, right?
Yeah, but you wouldn't agree if a woman said that.
He doesn't belong to her. She still belongs to him.
Correct. So
she belongs to him.
But and you've also said that you could.
Not in the context of what he's talking about, because he's talking about the transactional basis of whether or not they should pay him if they're making money. So that's
well, those parts are intimate, right? That's the whole point of her being
implies
his.
Yeah, but you didn't do reverse. When I said if a male porn star does it, he doesn't owe the girl a cut.
Correct, because he doesn't belong to her. She still belongs to him.
Correct. So that's the sexist part.
But and you've also said that,
And that's what he means
You also
in a
said that you
sexist
could have
fashion.
multiple
Ownership.
partners, but a female that was with you
Lordship.
couldn't also have multiple partners.
Managership.
Well, a woman could say that same thing if she decided. She could say, I can sleep with multiple men, but my men can't sleep with multiple women if she so choose. We're all free individuals.
He doesn't say that he belongs to her.
You wouldn't agree if a woman said that.
It's not a companion.
I don't think I would personally find that revolting, correct? But there are women who find what I say revolting.
So you're not telling other people what to think. You're just saying how you think.
Yeah, I mean, if I think that I think if a man is
and this
sexually,
individualistic,
exclusive, it's not the same as a woman is, because with a woman you have the paternity issue. With a man, you don't have a paternity issue. If I have 3 girlfriends and they all get pregnant, we know who the mother and who the father is.
My third or
If you have
fourth
one woman
attempt
and
at
3
language.
men, you don't know who even the parents are if she got
Not true.
pregnant.
It's my first language.
So it's a whole big issue, right? Science can step in and kind of fix it. But it's a good discussion.
And that's part of the problem of trying to redefine or decide that the word belonging is something nebulous. We know what he means. It's implied. You might take a different way, Tom, but the truth is, general consensus would be, oh yeah, he thinks that he owns people. And he's then saying it by supporting it surrounding in his actions and behaviors. His actions are more important than even the words that he uses in that case. But it is the behavior and action of, and disturbance or perturbance of,
precisely this trend
someone I happen
which
to
are
appreciate in a lot of
leading
ways.
the world to disaster.
Sucks.
Because we are now moving towards complete collectivism or socialism. A system under which everybody is enslaved to everybody. And we are moving that way only because
so we
of
have
our
agenda and motive.
But you say everybody is enslaved to everybody. Yet this came about democratically, Ayn. Free people in a free country voted for this kind of government.
You pronounce her name Ayn.
Do you object to the democratic process?
I object to the idea that people have the right.
Well, actually, Tom, I would argue that with you because it's not ambiguous. His actions, behaviors, and the fact that he's arrested right now and under charges for human trafficking means that he did believe that they belong to him. You can try to take it out of the context and try to give it your own meaning, but if you look at what he's saying and compare it to what he has done, his actions speak louder than any of the facade of his words may be, because in the end of the day, he treated them as belongings, so he does mean ownership in the case. We can infer that. It's similar to when girls get the man's name tattooed on them, but not vice versa. I guess, if that in fact is some kind of branding. Yeah, I could see that too. And as someone who knows one of the Nexium people, they definitely implied ownership in those brandings, like in so many ways. Yeah, but we should wait for the deliberation before being so certain. No, I disagree with you on that. We can take an opinion and basically discern that the guy's been doing bad stuff. They spent 180 days doing all the research, locked him up so he couldn't leave, let him out again, and then found more stuff, and then charged him with it, meaning that most likely they're not going to let him get off. There's not, most of the time when they charge people like that, especially in a foreign country, on a figure like him, they're not gonna, it's not gonna go well for him. Plus the charges are pretty solid if you look at the whole details of them, based off of also the evidence that's been leaked and what is available. It's fucking damning shit, man. Much less the fact that there's, like, a lot of the evidence is available because he was just public about shit stupidly. So he was selling the lover boy method, charging people to train them to be a pimp. I actually did an episode where I compared his training of the lover boy to a proper pimp doing the same thing, when it's indistinguishable. And that's what I'm saying is that, no, they think they're owners. And in fact, he describes ownership and bottom bitchhood and all this other stuff. That's a fold. That's ownership. I feel you. Whether he's guilty or not, I haven't said. But it's clear that he's done a bunch of bad actions enough to get himself arrested and charged for a massive amount of really negative shit. And then we can see most of that actually from what he has out there and has been taken down. It's not about all-knowing, Tom. If you sat on that jury with what was available to today, would you charge him with the crimes just based off of available? I know I would, based off of what's available, because I've done a lot of the reading on what's actually available or has been released as far as open evidence is concerned, and also what's online. I also follow a couple of the lawyers that are really looking at that stuff pretty deeply. But specifically, though, I have a little connection to all of it that's messed up, and I can tell you that people who do the things I have experienced with that circle, they're not, bro. We should probably assume the worst in that case, I'm gonna say. It's probably worse than we could ever know, actually, I gather. But anyways, we'll find out if the court thinks he's guilty or not. Yes. Court of public opinion. To me, the guy's done a bunch of bad shit, trained people in bad ways, and that 20% that you may take out of it, it's not worth it. There's too many other people that have 85%, 95% quality. So, you know, his effect will be felt for a whole generation. Much less the fact, in the same way Ayn Rand, her message should be one of determination and having a healthier skepticism and challenging the environment around you to get to a better position and pushing people who are going to stop you out of the way. That's great shit. That is great shit. And by the way, Tom, you don't need to be all-knowing. I was just thinking about it. When you sit on a jury, are you all-knowing? When you read a book, are you all-knowing? When you meet someone in life and you see them rob somebody or talking like a misogynist, or you see them behaving in certain ways, you can say freely that you have an idea what that is and make a conclusion without being all-knowing. It's called judgment. It's a thing that keeps us alive, frankly. It really does. It keeps us alive. It's the basis of how our eyes formed the differences in the back of our eyes to differentiate between dark and light. Yes, you can. You can know specific things, you can know general things, you can know variants of things, and once you pair that with your own emotional intellect, which I know you have quite a bit of, then you have a form of synthesis that you can make a judgment call and a definitive idea for yourself that most of the time, if you trust yourself, is going to be closer to truth than not. This whole doubting oneself because you don't know all the context of everything, that is actually a form of hypnosis to convince you that you aren't good enough to share. But I'm going to say, use a little or share your ideology or share your thought or spread it out there and be like kind of certain about it, even if you're wrong right now. You can be wrong right now and still be certain about what you feel about it and what you see and what you've objectively taken in. Oh, I understand. And by the way, that is a thing I've noticed. I should probably cover at some point about the variances of perception of certainty and how a lot of it, I've said this a number of times to folks when they're like telling me about all the things they're certain I'm uncertain about. It's like, well, you're not a fucking psychic. You're just projecting at me. That's weird. I totally understand, Tom. I totally understand. And that is a very common thing. I inundate, imbibe, and just chew for breakfast all of this stuff, and that's why I don't tend to speak on the topics as an expert by any means. I talk about it as reflective of what my observations are and the behaviors and what I think the ideologies are coming off as. Why I'm not resolute and absolute in anything but the fact that we should really avoid sticking to the mental prisons that lock us in. Why I share this stuff, frankly. Because I take bits and pieces from everything. I learn like you guys are, if you are. Might as well. But I think these are good examples and comparative, just on both on the visceral level and also when you get into the deeper meanings of what they're sharing. I think we can, like I said, we can take things away that are helpful and avoid the shit that isn't. And I've consumed so much of this that, I'm unsure of everything. Yes, I'm actually a great skeptic. But I'm an optimistic skeptic, and then I will pick out the things that are less biased, or I'll try to, or point out the bias. And by the way, I want to mention, just to clarify the record, because it was said the other night that I was a conspiracy theorist. Huh. Feeling threatened is the only point of reference you have for certainty. Ah, that can be a thing. Well, you know, maybe monologues. This is an interesting idea. Memorizing monologues by historic figures and or Shakespeare and just some random like poetry and art might be a good thing, and then say it to yourself in the mirror and start start breaking the this is something I would do for myself, which is positive reinforcement, but you could do it with the memorization of other people's words, because then you could put yourself in their shoes. And oftentimes I've found that role play is actually what helps. Hold on. I got something for this. Hold on a second. That role play is often what helps. Wink. To get over insecurity. Because then if you really need to, you can put a mask on. You can put a shirt on for the moment. You can put a hood on. You can put, you know, masks are natural for humanity to have to defend themselves, which is one of the things that has been devolved, I would say, in the lack of creativity in the streaming world, including the Red Pill, because everything is supposed to be real. You got to be real. Good faith, good faith, good faith. What are we living in? We should replace that with good face, good face. The bastardization of this objectivism that's turned into extreme determinism has allowed some to make sure that folks don't feel certain about anything, that they have to defend themselves in 12 angles, which is unrealistic, and a form of creating psychosis for tribalized, in-group coercion and coalescing. Anyways.
On everything. The traditional American system was a system based on the idea that majority will prevailed only in public or political affairs, and that it was limited by inalienable individual rights. Therefore, I do not believe that a majority can vote
starting to sound
a man's
familiar?
life or property or freedom away from him. And therefore, I do not believe that if a majority
By the way, if you didn't know,
on any issue,
this is also libertarianism. But hey, we'll get to that. We're not quite there.
that this makes the issue right. It doesn't.
All right. Then how do we arrive at action? How should we arrive at action?
By voluntary consent, voluntary cooperation of free men, unforced.
And how do our leaders arrive? How do we arrive at our leadership?
Yes, absolutely. And you get it, Tom. Putting on the cloak of someone who is an expert, and you know for certain, especially, someone like myself who's looked over so many shoulders of people who are the experts. I've been very lucky to stand next to some of my idols in my craft and others. Meet every member of, and work with, in most cases, at some point in time, every member of the association around the Beatles, including one of them. So these things do matter because you're able to take a little of that character, which is so important, a rich, and I often argue noble intent of character, a wealth of wisdom encapsulated in that character, created by the bits and pieces and crumbs and cookies of ideology, practices, emotional intellect, of all these mentors, of all these people that you look up to. It's important. It creates the identity of the individual. And you can use pieces of objectivism to create for yourself a clearer path. That's hands down truth. But when it turns into the only path at the sake or for the sake of yourself against the interest of others, now you're actually working against yourself, because in reality, no matter what you want to think of it, you can't take yourself out like you're in a vacuum. No, you're in a world with other motherfuckers. You should be able to sniff around, tell that everybody else has got an asshole too. Just like your opinion. We all got them. We all love our own brand. We all love our own brand of ideology as well.
Who appoints?
The whole people elects. There is nothing wrong with the democratic process in politics. We arrive at it the way we arrived by the American Constitution as it used to be. By the constitutional process, as we had it, people elect officials, but the powers of those officials, the powers of government are strictly limited. They will have no right to initiate force or compulsion against any citizen, except a criminal. Those who have initiated force will be punished by force, and that is the only proper function of government. What we would not permit is the government to initiate force against people who have hurt no one, who have not forced anyone. We would not.
And this sounds good.
The government or the majority or any minority the right.
Part of the problem with logic, though, ends up being
that was the original
individualism.
When you say take the property of
becomes
others,
a need for
I
control.
imagine that you're talking now about taxes.
To lead at all costs. What does that sound like? Oh shit. That sounds like Redpill. That sounds like WL. Winning at all costs. Just to win. As a transactional basis in place of interpersonal behavior that is positive for others and yourself, and also balanced with healthy emotional intellectualism. Meaning emotional intellect, intelligence in your emotional values. Paired, you hear me, paired with that individualism and respect for others. And there's so many things. And yes, this is the truth. It actually is the truth that in certain groups, dressing and behaving in similar fashion will influence the credibility you invoke in other people 100%, because the presentation in many cases becomes more important than the person. Which is why when we look at these things, I frankly start to think about the way that this has actually affected folks and what this has turned into. Which brings us to Act 2.
So I don't want to come off as like a full defense of debate bros, because I do think that there is a lot of danger that comes with these like online cult of personalities. Like, you know, I use Vosh and Destiny as kind of like the go-to when we talk about these debate bros, and I see a lot of that cult of personality where it doesn't really matter what they're saying.
Yeah.
It's just I like the person, therefore they're right.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of danger there.
There
Sorry,
really
I
is.
big time.
Yeah. No, and honestly,
oh
go for it.
yeah,
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That was very echo chamber of them. Oh yeah.
I grew up in a pretty right-wing household.
Stop that.
Not very overly religious, but Rush Limbaugh,
liberals down
in the '90s. Clintons were terrible.
Yep.
And just kind of like echoed that throughout my 20s, almost into my 30s. You know, I'm 38 now, and I start to sit there and I go like, we're doing the same thing over and over. I don't see the results. Now I start to hear these guys on YouTube who can actually articulate that other side way better than anyone around me ever could. So like people like Sam Cedar was a big one for me. I wouldn't really classify him as a debate bro, but hearing him debate these libertarians, you know, I was very libertarian.
Yeah.
And that's when it was like, oh wow, once you peel back that onion, this doesn't make any goddamn sense.
Fun story. Do you know?
And that tends to happen with a lot of the arguments.
Oh
here.
yeah, I just wanted to drop this in. Did you know that the term libertarian up until the 1950s was a far left word for anarchist? And a very specific campaign was created in the 50s to steal that word for the right. And so the reason that people call themselves libertarians now, it's a direct result of that word actively being taken from the left.
I learned something.
Yeah.
I absolutely learned something.
Yeah, that is fascinating because I tell people now, as a former libertarian, that all libertarianism is anarchism in disguise.
Yep.
Because
Actually, it's true. Because libertarianism rejects control by federal government. Sounds pretty familiar, huh?
And you believe that there should be no right by the government to tax. You believe that there should be no such thing as welfare legislation, unemployment compensation, regulation during times of stress, certain kinds of rent controls and things like that.
That's right. I'm opposed to all forms of control. I am for an absolute, laissez-faire, free, unregulated economy. Let me put it briefly. I'm for the separation of state and economics. Just as we had separation of state and church, which led to peaceful coexistence among different religions.
Sounds good.
After a period of religious wars, so the same applies to economics. If you separate the government from economics, if you do not regulate production and trade, you will have
It's not aging well.
peaceful
It's not aging well.
cooperation
I'm just saying
and
that.
harmony and justice among men.
You are certainly enough of a political scientist to know that certain movements spring up in reaction to other movements. The labor movement, for instance, certain social welfare legislation. This did not spring full-blown from somebody's head, out of a vacuum. This was a reaction to certain abuses.
We haven't even gotten to civil rights yet, by the way, at this time. So when he says labor movement,
source as the abuses. If by abuses,
women's right to
you mean
vote
the
is probably
legislation
the other big
which
one.
originally had been established to help industrialists, which was already a breach of complete free enterprise. If then, in reaction, labor leaders get together.
So far, this is true.
Initiate legislation to help.
Tom says that there's been no political movement,
only acting on the same principle,
anarchist political
namely,
movement,
all
that was ever
parties
faithful to anarchism
agreeing
as a
that
philosophy.
it is
That's very
proper
true.
for the state
It always
to
falls apart.
legislate in favor of
So far.
one economic group or another. But what I'm saying is that nobody should have the right, neither employers nor employees, to use state compulsion and force.
But when you
for their own interests.
advocate completely unregulated economic life in which every man works for his own profit, you are asking, in a sense, for a devil take the hindmost, dog eat dog society, and one of the main reasons for the growth of government controls was to fight the robber barons, to fight laissez-faire, in which the very people whom you admire the most, the hard-headed industrialists, the successful men, perverted the use of their power. Is that not true?
No, it isn't. This country was made not by robber barons, but by independent men, by industrialists who succeeded on sheer ability.
And having,
by
of course they
ability,
succeeded.
I mean without political force, help, or compulsion. But at the same time, there were men, industrialists, who did use government power as a club to help them against competitors. They were the original collectivists. Today, the liberals believe that that same compulsion should be used against the industrialists for the sake of workers. But the basic principle there is, should there be any compulsion? And the regulations are creating robber barons. They are creating capitalists with government help, which is the worst of all economic phenomena.
I think that you will agree with me when I say that you do not have a good deal of respect for the society in which you and I currently live. You think that we're going downhill fairly fast. Now, I would like you to think about this question.
Don't hit the button.
Intermission to ponder it and then come back and answer it.
Yes,
Do you
exactly.
predict
Yeah. Wrong said is, thank you. I was actually thinking something about that, but I was still playing the lick. Call it by any other name. Bullshit still smells like bullshit. This is true.
if we continue on our present course. Do you? And we'll get Ayn Rand's answer in just a moment.
Just literally a moment.
And now back to our story. All right, Ayn Rand, what I'd like to know is this. Since you describe it as happening in your novel Atlas Shrugged, do you actually predict dictatorship and economic disaster for the United States?
If the present collectivist trend continues, if the present anti-reason philosophy continues, yes, that is the way the country is going. But I do not believe in historical determinism, and I do not believe that people have to go that way. Men have the free will to choose and to think. If they change their thinking, we do not have to go into dictatorship.
Yes, but how can you expect to reverse this trend when, as we've said, the country is run by majority rule through ballot, and that majority seems to prefer to vote for this modified welfare state?
Oh, I don't believe that. You know as well as I do that the majority today has no choice.
What do you mean?
The majority has never been offered a choice between controls and freedom.
How do you account for the fact that an almost overwhelming majority of the people who are regarded as our leading intellectuals and our leading industrialists, the men whom you seem to admire the most, the men with the muscle and the money, favor the modified capitalism that we have today?
Because it is an intellectual issue. Since they all believe in collectivism, they do favor it. But the majority of the people has never been given a choice. You know that both parties today are for socialism, in effect, for controls, and there is no party. There are no voices to offer an actual pro-capitalist, let's say fair, economic freedom and individualism. That is what this country needs today.
Isn't it possible that we all believe in...
Well, we got that.
We are all basically lonely people, and we all understand that we are basically our brother's keepers.
You couldn't say that you really understand it, because there is no way in which you could justify it. Nobody has ever given a reason why men should be their brother's keepers, and you've had every example, and you see the examples around you of men perishing by the attempt to be their brother's keepers.
You have no faith in anything.
Faith?
Only
no.
in your mind.
That is not faith. That is a conviction. That is not faith. That is a conviction. Yes, I have no faith at all. I only hold convictions.
Who are you, Ayn Rand?
She has no faith at all. She only holds convictions. This is starting to sound more and more like, something like maybe, oh, sorry.
Where, like, you're saying how, like, the fallacies, I just kind of tuned in at the tail end of what you guys were talking about before I joined, but I heard you guys kind of talking about how it's like who can ever put in the best fallacy during a debate. And I think that when you're talking to a lot of these right-wingers, like, just, they don't care about facts.
Right.
It's not about what's right or what's wrong. It's just about convincing them. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily a good thing, but it's the reality, like, kind of, boots on the ground. Most of these people just need convinced. It doesn't need to be for a good reason.
And yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does, and you are spot on, and you also hit on hit the nail on the head in terms of why I don't think that debate programs are actually useful. Now, bear with me.
No good reason. Why would that be? Could it be that seeking validation in any way, shape, or form does fill a void for a lonely person who's seeking group interaction or negative attention? That could be something. Let's see what she thinks.
So I think you are absolutely correct. Right-wing, libertarian, there is a very specific type of person who sees the person who wins as the right person, right? Oh, they're the strong one. They're the aggressive one. They won that debate. Therefore, I now agree with them.
Yep.
And it's cool when that can happen and the person who wins is not as terrible, right? Then you're like, oh, cool. Now they're following this guy who is a little bit less awful. The problem is that that's not de-radicalization. That's just a redirection of a bad epistemology.
That is a incredible way to put that. Oh, he won! His ideas are shit, but he won! He might have a Nazi tattoo, but he won! Let's go follow him. That's a lot of what we're talking about here. I like his look. Hold on, let me get the close-up on this one. Hold on. Have I killed this effect yet? I love it. I can't even do it right. Anyway. Moving on. Yeah. Anyways. Win as fact, not as moral or ethical premise. This is the same word.
Hit the nail on the head in terms of why I don't think that debate bros are actually useful. Now, bear with me here. So, I think you are absolutely correct. Right-wing, libertarian, there is a very specific type of person who sees the person who wins as the right person, right? Oh, they're the strong one. They're the aggressive one. They won that debate. Therefore, I now agree with them.
Yep. Oh, I'm just repeating the same thing,
it's cool when that can happen and the person who wins is not as terrible, right? Then you're like, oh, cool. Now they're following this guy who is a little bit less awful.
Yeah, okay, so benefiting from being
Now
less
they're
terrible.
following this guy who is a little bit less awful. The problem is that that's not de-radicalization. That's just a redirection of a bad epistemology.
Yeah.
So the people who are debate bros right now, the people we think about,
Going from one bad idea to another.
Xander Hall, all of these people,
Just about being
they are
right.
benefiting directly
One-
from
or
that
the
core
idea of being
mentality
right,
of
not actually being
winner is right
correct.
person. And if they actually helped people to deconstruct that and de-radicalize, why do you think I won? Is it because I looked like I won? Is it because of the optics? Is it because of the fallacies that I was able to slip in? Those are bad because of X, Y, and Z. Actually, here's a good way to determine what you think and who you agree with. They'd actually lose a huge bulk of their subscribers. So they are benefiting from the same logic that right-wingers benefit from. It's just they happen to be a little less terrible in certain areas. So I'm always so skeptical when people say that they de-radicalize them. Like, yeah, you don't.
Yeah, and she's talking about one person in particular, but I don't want to get into that because we're pretty far out. But the comparatives here to the libertarian ideas that Ayn Rand is pushing, personally, beyond the books, beyond what you can take from that. Well, folks, the mirror is pretty amazing. And it's
dangerous to employ the same tactics because all it's going to take for all of Vash's fans to turn on him is for some right-winger somewhere to beat him in a debate. And then all of a sudden, those people no longer interested in the correct answer.
And
they
this is the
want to follow this
problem
guy
with the
now.
fragility.
And there are more of them now because
The
Vosh has built an
sensitivity.
audience. Or Vosh goes dark side more than
The
he already
inability
does.
to actually have
And
critical
all of
thinking.
a sudden, all of those people are now parroting Nazi terminology in the comments of other people's YouTube. Oh, just kidding. That already happens.
Which it does.
It's almost like a political, like when a dictator, like there's a vacuum of power, like there's just another strong man will take the place, kind of.
Right. And so I think a long-term solution, and this is idealistic of me, I guarantee, we need to stop fostering the strongman mentality within people. Because
I agree.
At that point, it becomes an individual perspective. It becomes, how am I making these choices, as opposed to who is being the loudest in the choices that they are making and who do I follow? So again, kind of a libertarian take in certain ways. Be an individual. Understand why you value certain evidence and be rigorous about it. Be brutal about it. Cut down your own assumptions and expectations to the bare nubs and then grow it back by yourself. And that way...
No, seriously. Well,
dude, I hope you're writing this down. This is...
So, yes, we should all write that down. Individualism is important and it gets you a good ways along. But then at some point, if it has been misconstrued or bastardized, To the point where the objectivism is now the only thing you seek at the cost of everything else. Meaning, just to win, so that you're accepted, or frankly, to assert ownership, or to maintain a status of being at the cost of others. That, my friends, we could just call that cruelty. We can call that insensitivity. We can even call it idiocy. Lack of social cohesion or understanding, emotional intellect, or intelligence. Boy, we could call it all kinds of things. But I think most importantly, we should notice that it's one of the early facets of what starts fascism in society and or the lead to authoritarianism. Because, one, you don't trust anybody. You think you're the only one who knows. You want to be the only one in charge, and you don't trust anything. You think that everything is transactional and the world is against you because the red pill suggests that the world is not as it should be. And if you take something and hang out with people in a certain way, then you'll see things differently as an individual, replacing actual objectivism with an imagined version. I think that's pretty freaking dangerous. But it can also lead to a whole hell of a lot of limitations. Because if you don't know all of the context of someone's belief systems, you may not know they hold things to heart that you may not agree with. They might be contrary to your entire sense of them. Which is what I'm going to share with you in Act 3.
Female in the White House as president, and how do you feel about that?
I wouldn't vote for her.
You would or wouldn't?
Would not.
You would not?
No.
One more time. Oops, sorry. Well, common sense capitalism.com.
Do you believe that there is going to be a day where there's going to be a female in the White House as president?
That's Phil Donahue.
How do you feel about that?
I wouldn't vote for her.
You would or wouldn't?
Would not.
You would not?
No.
Why not?
For many reasons. I've written an article about that in my former magazine. You'll have to find out my reasons there.
Yeah.
The magazine is The Objective.
Would you not
Sound
vote
familiar?
for her because she was a woman, even if she were better qualified than any man?
Well, I don't have time to Google that for you. Go look it up.
If we had followed that law, I might.
That low? I think you have a very, very
I'll
low
tell you
opinion
why.
of women.
Let me answer this.
She just said.
You'll have to find out my reasons there.
Yeah.
The magazine is The Objective.
Would you not vote for her because she was a woman, even if she were better qualified than any man?
If we had followed that law, I might.
That low? I think you have a very, very
I'll
low
tell you
opinion
why.
of women.
Let me answer this.
Clearly she does.
It is not to a woman's personal interest to rule man. It puts her in a very unhappy position. I don't believe that any good woman would want that position.
So
this sounds really fucking familiar.
Real life, they don't want to do that.
No, opportunity is fine. That's fine. But obviously, in reality,
really fucking familiar.
Like if you said, right, women and men have to go to war, then who's going to look after the kids?
No, but they don't say they don't go to war because so. What you're saying is, I agree what you're saying, but the reason that women say they don't go to war is not because they're staying at home to look after the kids. So what you're saying is, women shouldn't be drafted because they need to stay at home to look after the kids. But then what they would argue is, No, we're not staying at home to look after the kids. We want equal rights as you. So I agree with you. I don't believe.
War kicks off, and there's not a single woman that's going to be saying that.
Yeah, but
all the feminists will go quiet.
I'm just trying to show the contradiction.
No, I get that. Yeah.
That was my point. And there was like a clip of me that was taken out of context where I said if I had to pick between getting drafted and voted, like I would give that shit up easy.
Yeah.
I am scared. I will not be on the front lines. I swear to God, what you want me to cook? What you want me to cook?
She can't cook.
I saw your picture.
She can't cook. So
your view is that modern feminism is deeply flawed. I would argue a lot of your proposals, like taking the vote away from women, are deeply regressive. Why would you want to remove, just from yourself, the right to vote?
Well, what happened was I had the same view, right? Back when I started, I was like, why? I found out that only 5% of women wanted the right to vote. And I couldn't figure out, like, why would women not? No, it's true. If you look it up.
At the time.
No,
at
it's
the time,
not.
Because they've been conditioned by men to think that they shouldn't have a vote.
I mean, that's what they say, but, you know, I started reading their writings, right? And what I found out was that the reason a lot of women advocated for it was because they believed it was the beginning of the breakdown of the family. You know, before you became one in marriage, 85% of people were married. And, you know, I hate to say it, but they were right. What has happened 100 years later?
But what's that got to do with them having the vote?
Well, it also goes back to responsibility. Again, men are 80 to 90% of the military. They run all of the infrastructures that make society run. So I just think if we want an equal say in society, then be equal. Do 50% of the hard jobs. Be 50% of the military. In the U.S., they're fined $250,000 if they don't join selective service, which is essentially the trap.
Okay, but specifically on the vote, what would having the right to vote have to do with family?
Yeah, it's way more than just killing stuff, right, Bronx? No, in their mind's eye, it's anything to avoid the recognition of reality that there's more than just a binary function to any thought or any result or any interaction, or nothing matters except for the W, except for the individualistic desire to manufacture the world as they see it. And the distrust of women seems to be built into this, even when you go back to good old Ayn, who seems to be the mother of this logic system, objectivism, turned to determinism. It seems, to me at least, to sound very similar when you play something like... Oh, sorry, not like that.
There's going to be a female in the White House as president. And how do you feel about that?
I wouldn't vote for her.
The reasoning sounds very similar here.
No.
Why not?
For many reasons. I've written an article about that in my former magazine. You'll have to find out my reasons there.
I tried looking for that. It's not online.
The magazine
she had a magazine that she put out, and it's not. I couldn't find a copy.
She were better qualified than any man?
If we had followed that law, I might.
That law?
So qualifications, they don't matter. Sounds pretty familiar. And the idea is a biased one, because she says, well, if we, if our morals are that low, or our standards are that low, maybe. Why would the standard be low? What's wrong with women? There's this inherent belief that there's a less and a more in this ideology, unfortunately. And then it leads to a conclusion that suggests that the transactional systems of purchase and sale somehow overlap into the interpersonal world that require emotional intelligence. Because life is not just clinical value or understanding what a word means. No, it's understanding what a person means. That's way more important. And if you're too busy, and I'd say with your head up your ass, being an individual only for the sake and at the cost of yourself and others, you're not actually even benefiting. Add some hedonism in there, add some, asceticism, add anything but the one thing that you're using, because it may be, if it's red pill or debate broism, locking you into a form of libertarianism in practice that essentially is an anarchistic point of view. Imagine that, huh? Imagine that. Oh no. I had a second clip here. Where'd it go? Oh no. Oh no. Here we go. Sorry, folks. Let's watch the second half of this. There it is. Hopefully it'll come back to where yeah, there it is. No, it didn't. Damn.
Think. If they change their thinking, we do not have to go into dictatorship.
Yes, but how can you expect to reverse this trend when, as we've said, the country is run by majority rule through ballot, and that majority seems to prefer to vote for this modified welfare state?
Oh, I don't believe that. You know as well as I do that the majority today has no choice.
What do you mean?
The majority has never been offered a choice between controls and freedom.
How do you account for the fact that an almost overwhelming majority of the people who are regarded as our leading intellectuals and our leading industrialists, the men whom you seem to admire the most, the men with the muscle and the money, favor the modified capitalism that we have today?
Because it is an intellectual issue. Since they all believe in collectivism, they do favor it. But the majority of the people has never been given a choice. You know that both parties today are for socialism, in effect, for controls, and there is no party. There are no voices to offer an actual pro-capitalist, let's say fair, economic freedom and individualism.
This is starting to sound more and more red pill, if you ask me. That world is taking you under. Don't take part. It's not real. Only I can solve this with this plan. Hello, dummy. Hi, dummy. What's going on? Welcome. I don't know if I'm saying that right. But this sure is sounding kind of like, it's kind of sounding like,
it's a very complicated, complex subject that can't really be understood easily or without effort. And people don't think that way about it. Like you said, you can just see black and white people, but like, yeah, there's like, like an infinite universe of crap that you have to wade through to understand what's really going on and why people are black and white and what it all means.
Thank you, Demi. I appreciate you coming through.
Sure. Do you think that, like, to understand, like, racism today, or to say, like, we probably shouldn't be racism, or we should understand that people come from different backgrounds due to racism, like, do you really need, like, a huge historical understanding to get to that point, do you think, or?
I do. And
I do
I'll tell
as
you
well.
why, Destiny. I think it's because, unfortunately, we've waited too long to give that education. That education was something that needed to be given decades ago.
And why wouldn't this education be handed out?
Yeah, I'm just trying to, when we say
why
willful ignorance, what does that mean?
Oh.
Willful means that, like, someone knows, they know that there is knowledge on the other side and they're willfully choosing to not step over.
Okay, yeah, I don't believe that that's most. I don't think it's most people. I think that's a pretty rare position. Sure. Well, yeah, I understand.
Yeah, he said the same thing I did.
You think that's rare, huh?
I think a lot of people are, well, because I agreed with everything you said before. I think that we're born a certain way, we're raised a certain way, and our social values are reinforced a certain way. But I don't think people are like, when I think of willful ignorance, I think of a guy who's got, like, his ears plugged and he's screaming and he buries his head in the sand.
But that's not what it is. Willful ignorance is just like cognitive dissonance, the willingness to ignore the fact or facts. So as much as one would like to redefine what is already defined, somebody beat you to it. First. Tends to be Oxford did that. But, point being, a lot of this individualistic ideology sounds a hell of a lot.
Is what this country needs today.
Isn't it
Like
possible
this.
that we all believe in it because we are all basically lonely people and we all understand that we are basically our brother's keepers?
You couldn't say that you really understand it because there is no way in which you could justify it. Nobody has ever given a reason why men should be brother's keepers, and you've had every example, and you see the examples around you of men perishing by the attempt to be their brother's keepers.
You have no faith in any.
So an extreme point of view of something that is...
That is not faith. That is
basically a fallacy.
That is not
Unless
faith.
you were to look
That
at
is
it
a conviction.
in the meta.
Yes, I have no faith
And
at
yes,
all.
we are
I
all
only
lonely
hold
people.
convictions.
Who are you?
Because we are all alone with
When I say
ourselves
that,
at the end of the day.
I would like to know...
Even
just
if you have a
little
partner.
bit,
If you don't love yourself...
Of your vital statistics. You have an accent which is...
Russian.
Russian. You were born in Russia?
Yes.
Then who's going to
Came
love
here?
you?
Oh, about 30 years ago.
And whence did this philosophy of yours come?
Out of my own mind, with the sole acknowledgement of a debt to Aristotle, who is the only philosopher that ever influenced me. I devised the rest of my philosophy myself.
And by the way, you've been already shown to be having awesome faith in chat. And if you didn't know this, Demi, yes, music, the jazz, all of it, which is actually about to bring us to our summary. But actually, before I go into that, I just want to bring our new friend in chat into the bar and welcome them in. Because if you didn't know, you walked into a bar full of armed people. They're armed with wrenches. And that way, so when somebody comes in, who's an actual troll, and occasionally they do, they realize they're surrounded by a bunch of locals who also are strapped. It also makes it so that there's less argument and more evenness in the chat. And then I don't have to deal with anything because it's your chat, not mine. I don't direct chat. You are the chat. You are a whole portion of the show, by the way. So, as I hover over you here, I officiate and give you, dummy, like everybody else, the standard moderator. Congratulations, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome into the welcome them to the standard moderator role. You are now officially standard moderator. Let me give you a little horn blast here and a little bomb drop. Hold on a second. Well, welcome on in. Welcome on in. You now have a hard time getting kicked the fuck out. There's only one standard mod. There's only one head mod, and that's Bridget Moten. She comes through every once in a while, checking in on things, and if she kicks your ass out, you know you did something wrong. You did something wrong. So welcome on in. So thankful for you to be here. Yeah, Demi, come on. You good. Use it wisely. I've only seen one person actually have to, no, two people, Lita and Emily. I've never seen Bridget. Bridget can bust anybody, including me. And one of these days I will put myself in chat secretly with a different name and try to get myself kicked out so that I can, because she said, I'll never kick you out. No, I'm going to try to get kicked out. Oh, well, I'm sorry to hear that. We are equal opportunity. Hopefully you won't misuse it. Even if you do, I probably enjoy it. Just no spamming. No spamming. That's it. I got booted in it from a chat in Kidology the other day because I spammed up LARP over and over. LARP. LARP. It was so funny. I was LARPing with somebody else that I knew had Dr. Jordan P. Peterson as the name and the gift. So I was like, I played it up. It was so hilarious. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you, Bronx LT. Yeah, if you haven't already smashed the button, smash! And actually, hold on a second. I think it's, is it here? Where is it? Hold on a second. No. I just don't have it on with it. Smash the button, please, if you haven't already. If you're not already subscribed, please do so. I do have a large male and specifically white viewership who lurks, who hasn't subscribed. For everybody else, though, please just use your big ass thumbs. I know, one super annoying. They were super annoying. I appreciate it. Oh! I'm sure they're all going to be mad at me. They're always mad at me for something, but they never really show up when I have the smoke show. They never show. It's hilarious because they have to be outside of their environment where they're safe. That's fine to me. Yeah, I hand them out like candy because at some point somebody's going to come in and like have tricked me, and I'm fine with that because if you trick me, well done. But it won't last long because I still have a fucking button. It's like, I just love having all wrenches because, like the other day, somebody came into the chat. Yeah, by the way, same look. Yeah, so the other day, somebody came into the chat and it was absolutely hilarious. They came in and whether they write, not specifically, not with a preface, not with an adjective to define. To me, go on. I appreciate having the devil in my chat. That means I'm doing something right. Not because I'm attracting the devil, but the devil is an angel, and I am the king of fools, the fool of kings. I go where angels fear to tread. And if you didn't know, Azrael, that's a fallen angel. Ideologies can have disparate schisms, but at the same time, the story goes, we're all part of the whole thing. So trying to differentiate, I mean, I guess individually. Yeah, no. On Fridays, I definitely play Satan. And then I arc it. Anyway. Yeah. I get off topic. Feel free to always take a right turn. That's part of the fun. It's a Rubik's Cube. If you didn't know, it's a Rubik's Cube. Look, I'm a dancing cow. I'm sorry, but there's only one person who ever got that yet. Only one, and it's very hard to understand. Because it's just a sign that there's really some folks out there who don't understand. Right, Demi? I like that. Where is poo-poo sauce these days? I kind of also miss poo-poo sauce. I guess if I say it 3 times, I might. Poo-poo sauce? That's 3, yeah. Poo-poo sauce. Abogande! Oh, no, I had the wrong effect on. Abogande! Anyhow. Okay. Back to the show. Yes.
Did they die in Russia, or did they come here to the United States?
No, I came here alone, and I don't know. I have no way of finding out whether they died or not.
You are married?
Yes.
Your husband, is he
It's just too much fun some days.
No, he's an artist. His name is Frank O'Connor.
And he, not the writer? He
No,
paints.
not the writer.
And does he live from his painting?
He's just beginning to study painting. He
I
was
see.
a designer before.
Is he supported in his efforts by the state?
Most certainly not.
He's supported by you for the time being?
No, by his own work, actually, in the past.
Well, I know.
By me, if necessary.
Okay, so even as an individualist who believed in the transactional basis for interaction, she still is having to defend why they're living 50-50. Oh, that's uncomfortable. That logic gets real uncomfortable. Oh. But it does sure sound like the reality versus the intention of the Red Pill folks. I'm telling you, she is Mama Red Pill / debate bro. It's crazy. I can't believe the similarities. I really was blown away in the end. Because I do I mean, come on, Fountainhead. If you want to be inspired to take some action and move forward, there's some terrible lessons in there too, but Fountainhead will get you motivated. That is for sure. Atlas Shrugged as well. Atlas Shrugged is another one, but Fountainhead really, for some reason, that one sang to me. And then I learned that she's basically a libertarian who, anarchist, doesn't appreciate anything, and it's all for herself individually. It's tough, but I didn't know to this extent because I'd never heard her speak before. So this is pretty extreme. And it sure does sound like all these other ideologies that we've started to take into ourselves and in our systems in this subculture streaming and gaming. And we've taken that as, like, that's first run, like it's new. It's Rala Tamasi. There's like 12 others. But also, the intention of replacing what you don't see as fit with your own logic, your own ideas. That sounds a lot like the debate bro culture. Especially when you think of it how she does, where it's about winning at all costs. So what if somebody else loses? That's nature, right? And whoever wins, well, they're the ones you follow. Doesn't matter if it's a good idea or not. They won. Well, that goes along with this determinism, unfortunately. And it can be taken to the worst extent, which is why I believe that her ideas have been turned into a Frankenstein of determinism out of objectivism. Because the world can only be observed and described and fomented in an individualistic way to a point before you start stepping on the toes of general reality, which is shared. So after that, you got to get to determinism to force your pill, your idea, on the rest of everyone you deal with, or avoid them altogether, rejecting any other concept. Oh. Frankly, folks, I would argue is exactly what the red pill and exactly what the debate bro world has become. A bastardization of the logic and definitions founded by Mama and Ayn Rand. And frankly, I think we should take real stock in the jazz we lose when we only focus on the individual and let that become the Frankenstein's monster roaming free. Because we've let it out of control, and now we don't even know it's a monster we created. Which is why I bring us back to what I started with, as I generally do. Dr. Cornel West, talking about the jazz of language, life, thought, and creativity. Because this is the alternate. This is the opposite. This is individualism as conservative
thoroughly
collectivism.
Saturated the discourse of modern thinkers. Can you totalize? Can you make things whole?
My apologies. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already.
Romanticism thoroughly saturated the discourse of modern thinkers.
He really was.
Can you totalize? Can you make things whole? Can you create harmony? If you can't,
I wish he wasn't so
disappoint.
creative. creating
Disappointment is
harmony.
always at the center. Failure is always at
Takes
the center.
coordination.
Where's the romanticism come from?
Takes
Why begin with
cooperation.
romanticism? See, I don't begin with romanticism. No, you remember what Beethoven said on his deathbed, you know? He said, I've learned to look at the world in all of its darkness and evil and still love it. And that's not romantic Beethoven. This is the Beethoven of the string quartets of 131, the greatest.
And that is the opposite
greatest
of the
string quartet ever
objectivism
written, just in classical music.
and the red pill and the individualism. It's to not reject the reality as you want it.
But the string quartet, you go back to those movements. There's no romantic wholeness to be shattered as in the early Beethoven. He's given up on that. This is where Chekhov begins. This is where the blues starts. Where jazz starts. You think Charlie Parker's upset because he can't sustain a harmony? He doesn't care about the harmony. He's trying to completely ride on the dissonance, ride on the blue notes. Of course, he's got harmony in terms of
that sounds
interventions
familiar.
here and there. But why start with this obsession with wholeness? And if you can't have it, then you're disappointed and want to have a drink and melancholia and blah, 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 blah. No, you see, the blues, my kind of blues, begins with catastrophe, begins with the angel of history and Benjamin's thesis. You see, it begins with the pile of wreckage on one pile on another. That's the starting point. The blues is personal catastrophe lyrically expressed. And black people in America and in the modern world, given these vicious legacies of white supremacy, it is how do you generate an elegance of earned self-togetherness so that you have a stick-to-itness in the face of the catastrophic and the calamitous and the horrendous and the
And that
scandalous
can be
and the
achieved
monstrous.
with individuality as the only precept for life and dealing with others.
See, part of the problem, though, is that, see, when you have a romantic project, you're so obsessed with time as loss and time as a taker. Whereas as a Jacobian Christian, I want to stress as well time as a gift and time as a giver. So that, yes, it's failure, but, you know, how good is the failure? You've done some wonderful things. Now, Beckett could say, you know, try again, fail better. But why call it failure? I mean, why not say you have a sense of gratitude that you're able to do as much that as you did? You're able to love as much and think as much and play as much. Why think you needed the whole thing? You see what I mean? This is even disturbing about America. And of course, America is a romantic project. It's Paradisal, City on the Hill, and all this other mess and lies and so on. I said, no, America's a very fragile democratic experiment predicated on the dispossession of the lands of indigenous peoples and the enslavement of African peoples and the subjugation of women, the marginalization of gays and lesbians. That it has great potential. But this notion that somehow, you know, we had it all or ever will have it all, it's got to go. You got to push it to the side. And once you push all that to the side, then it tends to evacuate the language of disappointment and the language of failure. And you say, okay, well, how much have we done? How have we been able to do it? Can we do more? Well, in certain situations, you can't do more. It's like trying to break dance at 75. You can't do it anymore. You are a master at 16. It's over. You can't make love at 80 the way you did at 20. So what? Time is real.
So one question that keeps coming up.
Time is real. The union of our spirits and the need for each other and the balancing, the need for hanging on the blue notes, cannot be underestimated. To create tension when it's needed, and when it needs to be relieved. melody that we make for ourselves must be intertwined with the harmony surrounding it. Even if the blue notes create that tension. Yeah, it's true. But the truth is, even that didn't work out too well for him because he kept having to change out everything around him. You can be as individualistic as you want. But the truth is, at the end of the day, we still have to work with each other. We still have to make the harmony. We still have to add in our lone licks, so we gotta keep that objectivism to create that individualistic experience within the group, but not just solely for the self. Which is always my point, is that we can't, and we don't, become our better selves, in my opinion, unless we include all of the possibilities that we can gather that work for us. And I would quote Einstein in saying that a fish is a genius in the water, but when you put the genius of a fish in the tree, they are no longer capable of being the genius in the water. Meaning, pull a fish out of water, put them in a tree. They're not in the environment they're meant to work in. But I would actually argue, well, who's the fucking idiot who took them out of the water and stuck them in a tree? Jesus Christ, that's a fish! Holy shit! And I would also argue that this determinism and lack of harmony, intentively so, and intensely so, is the idiot pulling fish out of the water and shoving it in the tree and then pointing at the fish and going, ha ha! You can't figure it out! Because they aren't figuring out that the fish belongs in the water. And they don't want to take part in the harmony of swimming or simply climbing the tree themselves. Some silly little monkey. We are. All of these things combined, and any one ideology, any one plan, tends to fail or fall flat on its face. Because you don't make a pie without a bunch of elements. Jelly, what's happening? And definitely that pie doesn't bake well, unless you give it a little butter on top. And none of those elements are just a pat of butter. I can tell you, it's tasty to begin with. But after a while, your heart's gonna fucking clog. Because all you've been eating is fat. Metaphor aside, unfortunately, I have found, and posited here today, that the great Ayn Rands meaning and slogan. And by the way, if you haven't seen Jelly's work, I was at her spot last night, and I apologize for, there was so much going on last night. There was literally a murder solution going on where the murderers were literally talking between each other and like outing themselves and comparing how they would outing each other. Yeah, it's a fat meat, greasy, exactly. And it's self-absorbed, solipsistic. It disregards the whole of the group for the self, which is what she's saying. It also would disregard logic that doesn't fit what you need it to win. And those are the premises of both the debate bro culture and the red pill. And it all comes from just one person.
Emotional impression. Is that your impression?
No.
which can be demonstrated to be true and necessary.
All right. All right.
Now, may I define what my morality is?
All right.
Because this is merely an introduction. My morality is based on man's life as a standard of value. And since man's mind is his basic means of survival,
Actually,
I hold.
Jelly, we're just in summary of comparative. We're actually, I have come to find that Ayn Rand's language, personally, and her descriptions of what she believes align directly with the individualism or objectivism turned determinism of the red pill and debate bro cultures. Both the will and need to win, whether it's correct or not, but just to win, as well as the properties of transactional sensibilities in relationships. And once you get a chance to go back through the video, you find that she literally says the same things that Myron Gaines says. She says so much of what was encapsulated and what we know in the modern red pill and MGTOW, and even weirder in the actual debate logic and reasoning for most of the actions and behaviors of the debate bro world. It is shocking. I was shocked. I'm a big fan of hers. And when I found it, it changed my whole plan for today. That's why I'm late. And Luigi the Knife Fighter, welcome, welcome. I don't know if you noticed. You're in an armed bar. And you're here at the end, which, by the way, I appreciate you all for being here. It's late. It's late. I started like 2.5 hours late. Jesus Christ. Thank you for being here at the end. And I appreciate that. John Galt, yeah. Yes. Very similar. Like the reasoning and the behaviors and we did get to a point where, by the way, and since I'm in summary, I won't go back too far over it, but where he asked her, well, I know you're dating somebody, he's an artist, right? And, are you financially taking care of him, or is he taking, what's going on there? She basically describes, well, no, he's making money off his own. She describes that she has a 50-50 relationship with the dude, while she's been describing that individualism and objectivism is the key to actually the forward motion of winning and getting forward in life. It was like, oh my God, it's Myron Gaines! Oh my God, it's the red pill! It's very much the red pill. It's pretty wild. In any case, I'll let her speak her last thought.
If man wants to live on Earth and to live as a human being, he has to hold reason as an absolute, which
reason
I mean that he has to hold reason as his only guide to action, and
it's
that he
only
must
guide to
live
action,
by the
she says.
independent judgment of his own mind, that his highest moral purpose is the achievement of his own happiness, and that
which sounds like hedonism, but it disregards the reply or reciprocity involved or getting joy from others, because it doesn't need it.
He must not force other people, nor accept their right to force him, that each man must live as an end in himself and follow his own rational self-interest.
May I interrupt now?
You may.
Because you put this philosophy to work in your novel Atlas Shrugged.
That's right.
You demonstrate it in human terms in your novel Atlas Shrugged. And let me start by quoting from a review of this novel Atlas Shrugged that appeared in Newsweek. It said that you are out to destroy almost every edifice in the contemporary American way of life.
Oh, you're good, Labia. You're good. Thank you for being here, Labia. I love when Labia shows up.
Government-regulated capitalism are ruled by the majority will. Other reviews have said that you scorn churches and the concept of God. Are these accurate criticisms?
Yes. I agree with the facts, but not the estimate of this.
Do as thou wilt.
Namely, if I am challenging the base of all these institutions, I'm challenging the moral code of altruism, the precept that man's moral duty is to live for others, that man must sacrifice himself to others, which is the present-day morality.
And I think that sums it up in her words. that she believed that the altruism was overblown and unnecessary. And I think that settles my point. That frankly, we're looking at Mama Red Pill debate, brah. Debate, brah, mama. Ayn Rand, who knew? I was shocked when I found it all. Oh, when you see the rest of it and what she says, it's quite shocking in comparison, actually. I was shocked. It came up on that, so I changed my whole plans. I was doing a totally different show today. In any case. And I appreciate your input on that. So I'd love to hear your thought actually later on, Jelly, about what you took away from this. Actually, I'll call in. We can talk about it. And I have a call in on Friday, by the way, just to remind you all. And I believe there's a couple people who might be showing up to that one. I'm not sure. We'll see. Come a woman. The irony to me. Yeah, the irony. Well, think about incel. The term incel comes from a gay woman. And it was corrupted by an MRA, men's rights advocacy. So these are things that we should take into consideration, that we're hearing reiteration and disturbed perturbation of ideologies that can be very helpful, that are really important in finding will and power in the self. But we have to take each and every one of these thoughts with some grain of salt. And I think that's what we learned, is that balance is everything. Because if you're only objectivism and no altruism, Abba, what's happening? No, you're all good. I appreciate you coming. By the way, it's so late. My pleasure to me. I'm so glad I could share it with you, and I'm so glad you're getting something out of it. That's my only concern most of the time, is that are people getting something out of this? Taking something or feeling something or seeing something they want to watch? Yes, please do. Please do. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. So at the end of the day, what we learned is that nothing on its own balances out, because it overweights the scale and tips to one side or the other. And the outcome of this, in objectivism becoming determinism, is a whole group of people that think that they can eat a fake pill. Here, take this, and you'll see the world is totally different. It's got a single eye. Oh, thank you very much, Timmy. I appreciate it. I do have grand plans. Let me tell you. Grand plans. At the end of the day, what else did we learn? Oh, man, what did we learn? Holy shit. Tom Bombadil was here. Lita Caproni was here. IB Tide was here. New Air was here. Oh my God, I know Emily was always here. She's always. And Labia was here. And hold on, I gotta get through the early. Bronx LT was here. Demi was here. Who else was here? I see. Alita's still back in. And who else came back? Bronx. Jelly with the Hanafuda. Thank you all for being here. I see you all. I see you. Oh, and oh my God, I can't believe. I apologize. You're here at the end. Shalom Abba. Thank you for being here. I see you. I see you all joining me, and I appreciate you being here. And if I had those little clomper rompers, I'd hand them out, because we would all run around the room clomping for at least 8 minutes before somebody fell over. Like, all right, I'm old. Yeah. Because you ain't breakdancing at 75. I don't know. I don't know if I agree. I would love to see a breakdancer at 75. I know, what was his name? He only lived in his 60s, didn't he? The guy who did the robot, who was the robot. Anyways. Electric Boogaloo. And Electric Boogaloo 2, by the way. That's right. Anyhow, don't get me down that route. Okay, stop. I'll stop. At the end of the day, all we can do is take the pieces that we learn and need for ourselves. Truth. I feel that. I love you too, Abba. Thank you for being here. It does go by. It really goes by. It flies. And especially once you get past a certain age, which is why if you're standing out there and you see someone spending their life, wasting their time on something that is consuming them, they've taken a red pill, or they're fighting over a win, just to win, remind them that you don't bake a pie with just a cherry, that you don't build a building with just a single stick, that you don't make a community or a life standing on your own on an island all unto itself. But rather, you run into things in life. You trip and fall. You run and get back up. You enjoy and you share. And sometimes you hoard. And sometimes you secure and while away secret. But at the end of the day, the only thing I can ask any of you in any of these situations is that when you see someone heading towards that edge and the train is coming, or the bar is set way too fucking low, there's only one option for any of us, because none of us can live somebody else's life. No. There's no way. They got to do it for themselves. But you know what you can do? And I think you're familiar with this. You just raise your voice. And it's an easy little statement. Because the lights can fall from the sky. And that bar can be set real fucking low. Truth. And let's accelerate it all. Specifically, when you say to those who need it, because they're about to run right the fuck into that bar that was set way too low. My friends, there's only one fucking thing you could do, and that's basically, and you can say it with me now, look out! Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you joining and being into the ideas, and I hope you got to take something with you. And if anything, most importantly, we're here together because I think Bridget Moten, hey, main mod Bridget Moten, what's the haps? I guess it's in the replay tonight, huh? Have a beautiful evening, all. Love each other, be kind to yourself, and most importantly, trust that the pills aren't worth it, that it's really just an action of calling. And that action is to say, look up.